Nintendo is a truly amazing developer. They almost single-handedly saved the video game industry from total devastation in the 80s, and their design ethos is truly unique. They always strive to reinvent themselves with every generation, and drastically shake up gaming experiences. Now, that's not to say their approach is flawless. Sometimes you get a Switch, and other times it goes horribly wrong and you get whatever the Virtual Boy was.
I can't see! I can't see!
However, for every series the Big N tends to like a gardener, there seems to be just as many they've let fade into obscurity. Kid Icarus, F-Zero and Star Fox to name a few, but of all the red-headed stepchildren, no series has been as badly handled as Metroid. Now, I'm not defending Nintendo here at all, but I can see why they might not be keen to return to the depths of space. While the series has achieved critical acclaim and has a rabid fanbase, financially it's never been a great performer for them, and the series never really found its footing in Japan. Hell, since Metroid Fusion, every major release in the series has been handled by an outside developer, as Nintendo just don't know what to do with the series. Couple all that with the last major release, Metroid Other M, being as well received as a drunk text from your ex about how Trevor satisfies her in a way you never could, and that the relationship didn't work out because of you, but you know that you would have done anything to make it work, and that even though you don't think of her as the one anymore, she still has this way of getting in your head and making you think you're less of a man, and that causes you to lash out and push away the people close to you who deserve your love, and ultimately makes you realize that what you had wasn't even real and that there's still some healing needed there. You know, that kind of bad. That's never happened to me.
I'm in a glass case of emotion!
Where was I? Oh yeah, Metroid. Metroid abandoned its traditional 2D roots long ago, which is a real shame, especially when you consider this format and gameplay may be the most influential thing Nintendo has ever produced. Sure, Link and Mario have way more brand recognition, but only Metroid has an entire genre of gaming named after it. Yet despite a massive influx of Metroidvania in the indie sphere, nothing quite captured the Metroid sense of cosmic horror and haunting atmosphere. I mean, if you were a diehard classic Metroid fan, the last original game you got was Metroid Fusion, way back in 2002, and the last 2D game, Metroid Samus Returns, kinda left a bitter taste in the mouths of fans, as its existence led to death by cease and desist for the beloved fan remake of Metroid 2. So it seemed like Metroid was put on ice in deep space without any hope until June 15th of 2021. To say Metroid Dread had tumultuous development would be an understatement. Originally conceived as the follow-up to Metroid Fusion and planned for the DS all the way back in 2005, two separate attempts were made by series creator and producer Yoshia Sakamoto to bring the game to life. However, Sakamoto wasn't happy with the results of the DS game prototypes and shelved the project, believing games like Other M and Federation Force were better ideas. Luckily, The Witch's Curse that erases common sense was lifted during a time of renewed interest in the series due to the announcement of Metroid Prime 4. So after all that and a 20-year wait, we finally have Metroid Dread. But was it worth the wait?
That's pretty good.
Not only is Metroid Dread a fantastic game in its own right, but it takes all the good from the previous games and implements it here. Narrative, gameplay, progression, and atmosphere have all been polished to a mirror sheen. Is it the best in the series? I can't really say, but it is without a doubt the most streamlined. Once again, you step into the slim-fitting power armor of Samus Aran, a mommy so dummy she gives Lady Dimitrescu a run for her money. Who writes this crap? Oh, yeah. This time, the Queen of Space Bounties has been tasked with investigating the reappearance of X-Parasites, the body-snatching abominations of Metroid Fusion. Upon landing on planet ZDR, she meets, fights, and loses to THE Robot Chicken, passes out, and wakes up with less clothes on, and comes to the only logical decision.
Jesus! Oh, fucking goddamn! I gotta get the fuck out of here!
However, after a quick chat with her giant Alexa, who reminds her to pick up milk and heavy artillery on her way home, she also decides it would be a good idea to maybe figure out why she was attacked by poultry. It might seem a little strange to discuss the narrative of a Metroid game, especially when the majority of them are go to place and do things with very little in between, but the narrative is actually in service to the game's overall feel. You see, after the stalker enemy in Metroid Fusion, Sakamoto wanted to utilize more horror elements in Metroid, which may be why the DS prototypes were so lacking. I mean, for as imposing as the SAX is, you can easily cheese it, and once you know how it works, it's not too bad. Dread, however, wants to keep you in a permanent state of unease, or dread. Get it? The mystery of the Chozo warrior being trapped in the core of a planet with body-snatching parasites and away from your ship and civilization is all in service of this. The uncertainty is supposed to fester in your mind and make you second guess yourself. However, the narrative can only go so far in this regard, especially because it uses the Chozo warrior so sparingly you almost forget about him. No, the real feature that keeps you on your toes are the Emmys. Wrong Emmys. The Emmys are Metroid's version of those Boston Dynamic robot dogs, but you know, not lame. These bipedal nightmares were sent to ZDR before Samus to investigate the presence of the X-Parasite, but went dark, forcing Samus, the only being in existence who's immune to the X-Parasite, to look into their reappearance. Now the Emmy's only goal is to aggressively pursue Samus, pin her down, and violently penetrate her. That sounds like messed up fanfiction from the grosser side of the Metroid fandom. The Emmys patrol specific areas of the game world, and while they might sound like a copy of the SAX, they're way less manageable and far more stressful. Not only can Samus not hurt them at all, but if one does catch you, you have to have lightning reflexes to maybe have a chance to break out of it. They're also way better at locating you as they use sound and X-ray. If they do find you, they'll lock you in their search area until you somehow lose them again, all the while stalking you like the Predator or those really pushy creeps at a convention. Isn't it kind of messed up how that's life for some women? Travel in packs, queens. There's also something rather unsettling about the Emmys. Maybe it's the aspect of them that's informed by real world creatures rather than machines that makes them so haunting. They skitter along the ground like a reptile. They can scale walls and ceilings, and the way they unfold from vents kind of reminds me of that one scene in The Ring.
No, turn it off, I can't look!
When you do eventually get the Omega Beam to kill them, you can't just run and gun like any other enemy. You have to use a charge shot while you're locked in place, and the enemy just slowly lumbers towards you. And the camera changes so you get this really claustrophobic over the shoulder angle of it all. I kinda low-key love it. And the fact that the Emmys all have a different power just means that the terror never gets stale, or that the encounters are all the same. Now that's not to say Dread is a horror game. It just has horror elements and mechanics built in to recreate the atmosphere of a film like Alien, reiterating that Dread is the culmination of the ideas and mechanics in every previous game. It's even present in gameplay. While older entries like Super Infusion gave you a written description of how pickups worked, they didn't realize that I'm a millennial. I don't read. That's for old people. In Dread, you get a video on exactly what your new ability does. That being said, there's still experimentation in how these new powers work. It also makes the overall gameplay much more fair. You see, in entries like Fusion and Super, Samus could only shoot in straight directions and maybe diagonally. This meant that you'd often have to cancel your moment-to-moment progress in order to align yourself to handle foes.
Could you just hold on for 1 second? You see, this is why I hate angles that aren't 90 or 45 degrees.
Dread receives the free aiming from Mercury Steam's previous Metroid game, and the counter ability, meaning you can constantly be on the move, and this style of combat is very much championed by Dread. Unlike previous games, Samus feels much quicker and nimble, and the best fights all account for movement. Heck, unlike in Metroid Returns, Samus's counter can be used while running, and when upgraded can kill weaker enemies. The Screw Attack, Phantom Dash, and Missile Storm all allow you to focus more and more on movement, and your placement in the arena, making battles feel like a cat and mouse game, rather than just, I'm gonna stand here and exploit your weakness. Speaking of missiles, your equipment has also been streamlined, unlike Super Metroid, where you had to cycle through every option just to get freaking super missiles. Now missiles are just one button away, and Super Form is just an upgrade to your regular missiles, meaning you don't have to collect 2 types of missile upgrades and pretend like grandmother got you a good gift.
Thanks, I hate it.
All this may sound like the game is super easy, but it's really not. Early game you start with 1 health tank, and enemies can easily end you. They're way more aggressive than previous entries, and even basic ones can take a fair bit of health. If you still had any doubt that Dread is a culmination of all the previous games, look at how speedrunner friendly it is. Not only do you unlock stuff depending on how quickly you finish the game, but the devs even considered sequence breaking and reward it. Like, did you know if you get the power bombs before you fight Kraid, you can kill him almost instantly? Or if you hold onto a Shine Spark during the ventilation boss, you can just one-shot it? That's wild. I think it's telling that the only real criticism about Metroid Dread is that A, the game is short, and B, the loading screens are too long. You know how I read both those criticisms? That people just want more of Dread. Now, don't get me wrong, those loading screens are long and boring.
Next stop, Bellegarde.
I knew I should have taken the F trains.
I think it's also ironic that this game handles Samus's characterization way better than Other M, despite the fact that it's only really subtle stuff. When she sees threats like Kraid, who she's, let's face it, killed like 3 times now, she's not so much afraid as, this again. That's not to say that she's unfathomable. She immediately assesses threats, and once she sees that they're not, she can ease off or even relax. And there also is a certain sense of honor to Samus in this game that we don't get to see because, well, let's face it, she doesn't really interact with a lot of NPCs. Look, guys, let me level with you. This feels like a last-ditch effort on the part of Metroid, and according to interviews with the series creator, kinda is. This marks the end of Sakamoto's original plan for the series. He kinda had always planned to end the 2D series with Dread, and now that it's done, it does kind of feel definitive. Sure, this is the fastest selling game in the series, but it took 20 years and 2 games that could be used as torture in Guantanamo Bay, and some weirdly repressed relationship stuff for me to get here.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything, but you need help, buddy.
What I'm trying to say is, if you have a Switch and you're looking for a genuinely good time and also want to support one of Nintendo's most slept on IPs, I urge you to check out Dread. But what do you guys think? Has the world moved past the need for classic Metroids, what with the boom in the indie sphere? Do you prefer Super Metroid over Dread? Let me know in the comments below, like or dislike depending on your mood. Subscribe if you want to see more, and also big thank you to B. Nicole Sings for putting up with my bullshit and playing Samus. Guys, I'll catch you in the next one. Have a good Valentine's Day. I love you. Mwah.